Awesome. So thank you, everybody. Myself and Tuan Tran. Tuan is going to be doing the demo for us here in a moment. What I wanted to do is just do a quick level set on what Morpheus Enterprise software is. So that is a component of our Morpheus software platform. And what we'll do is we'll show you a little slideware, not more than probably 5 minutes. And then we're going to get into the good stuff and have Tuan give you an actual live demo of our Morpheus Enterprise platform. So what I wanted to do first is really start and talk a little bit about our history. So we were an acquisition by HPE about 18 months ago, and we had been partnering with HPE prior for almost 5.5 years. And the reason that they acquired us was quite simple. They have been building out a software stack of different components. So it's us and OpsRamp and Zerto and many other smaller acquisitions, but the three of us kind of make up what is now called Cloud Ops Suite for HPE. And the idea here is we want to be able to offer, we being HPE, want to be able to offer a full stack solution, not just the hardware that everybody knows HPE for, but also a software stack that can really run above the hardware. And not only on HPE hardware, but everybody doesn't have a full HPE environment, so we recognize that. So our software suite as a whole is very agnostic to the underlying infrastructure. So we love to run on HPE gear, but it's not a requirement, and we support all different types of not only infrastructure that's on premises, but also infrastructure based in the cloud, so hyperscalers like AWS, Azure, GCP, et cetera. So the idea is we want to be able to, whether it's a remote location, a private data center, a colo, or even in the public cloud, and Tuan will show you a little bit of what that looks like in a moment. We want to be able to manage traditional workloads or cloud native or AI workloads. And all of that really comes down to the fact that when HPE acquired Morpheus Data, they were looking to build out the ability to have a true cloud. And the missing piece was us. And that enables self-service that Tuan will show you in a moment. And it's really about being able to take and consume a cloud as any cloud, right? Whether it's in the public cloud, AWS, for example, or if it's in the data center, or maybe it's a hybrid model. We want to take the approach of cloud as a cloud. We want to treat everything the same and be able to manage it and consume it in a very similar, consistent manner across the Morpheus Enterprise interface. So what does that look like in kind of an environment for our customers? The reason Morpheus Enterprise was born was because we were trying to manage internally, this is about 10 years ago when we started our company, we were trying to manage a lot of different technologies inside of our business. And our customers are very similar. They have a lot of technologies. You can see some of the logos that are here kind of grayed out. But the idea is it's become very complex, very challenging, very difficult to manage a private or even a hybrid cloud environment, because just doing basic things, and these are just a few examples, how do you manage new requests? How do you ensure that compliance is a day 1 thought, not a day 32 thought? How do we make sure that dependencies are not forgotten about, but are included in everything so that, again, back to security and compliance? What controls do we keep in place to ensure that the right people have the right access to the things they need, not necessarily giving everybody keys to the entire kingdom, where potentially, a developer might have access and do something to a production environment, accidentally, of course, but that's a bad thing. So we want to make sure people are structured in what they can do and how they do it, and you'll see what that looks like in a moment. But that's really where Morpheus kind of came from. And our kind of elevator pitch, if you want to call it that, is we want to make the on-premises environments as fast and flexible as the public cloud. At the same time, every customer has public cloud out there, so we want to bring governance and not let it be as much of a Wild West as it generally is. And then we want to bridge the gap between the people to process the tools and technology. And again, you're going to kind of see what this looks like as Tuan gives you a demo, because depending on the role of the person in the different organizations, you can restrict or grant access to what they need. Again, not just giving them, here's the keys to everything, go have fun. I did want to share a real life example of one of our customers. So this is one of our legacy Morpheus Data customers. They came to us, their challenge was quite simple. They had at the time a database as a service application. They were trying to build it out and do it in a better, more efficient way to create better value for the business and make the team that was very small and nimble be able to manage that quickly. It took them about 15 days and about 80 man hours to build it. You can see the various steps here presented. Each box represents a team or a group or a person that had to go out and touch and do something. And, you know, if somebody's on PTO or out of the office for some reason, then that workflow stops. They recognized they needed a better way. So they actually found us through Gartner, did a demo, did a quick POC, were able to roll this out after they made the definition or the determination that we could fit everything that they needed. They rolled us out in about 30 days and did it globally within 60 days. And the idea was they took all those manual steps that were on the previous slide, they boiled it down really into 3 steps. The end user submits the request into the portal, which Tuan is going to show you in a moment. The Morpheus software then takes it and does all the build steps that were being done manually by different teams and does it all within software. And then the output goes back to the user as that database as a service. And this customer has since, they're still a customer today, so that's about 7 or 8 years ago. They've rolled this out beyond just the database as a service, and they're doing lots of other applications. And what their return on investment has been from a global perspective, year over year, it's been a 7-figure return. So it's a very dramatic impact that we can have on our customers, and it helps make life a little bit easier. We automate things, make life just a little bit simpler for the whole world. So at the end of the day, kind of what you're going to see in the demo is we want to boost productivity. Generally, we see at least 50% boost. Productivity levels are increased by that. We also want to put compliance and make the risk go down and set up the proper guardrails, not ones that are, you know, get in the way of doing your job, but just make sure that you have what you need to do and you can work in your swim lane and get everything done. We do that through RBAC, role-based access control, and multi-tenancy as part of the platform if you want it. And then at the end of the day, it's that click a button, easy button approach where we're going to make things much, much faster. You know, we have some customers that are going 150 times faster than they were doing before because we were literally boiled it down to what those previous slides just showed. So that's kind of the Morpheus software as a whole. And what I want to do is hit on just a couple more slides. And we're going to show this as we talk about the demo. The idea, again, is not just about a single cloud, right? You can have a single cloud that's perfectly acceptable. Morpheus was going to manage it just as it would manage 10 clouds. But the idea is whether it's, you know, an on-premises flavor, whether it's something in the cloud, whether it's any instance of a hypervisor or hyperscaler, we are going to be able to manage that and productively help make things more efficient. And what we're going to talk on again today and show you in the demo is going to be the Morpheus Enterprise. So what we're going to show you is how to manage across third-party distribution cluster environments, private clouds, public clouds, doing advanced provisioning with blueprinting, automation, workflows, you know, very deep governance and tying into multiple different levels. Being able to show reporting, start that journey towards show back and charge back. But then we have about 70 or 80 different tools out of the box. The wonderful thing that you're going to kind of see by the end of the demo is we have all the integrations that are native, but what if you have something that we don't have a native integration for? As long as there is a set of APIs, you can actually code and automate to that. And that's going to be done through our advanced automation engine that Tuan will hit on with our workflows. Last slide that I have is I just want to kind of talk about how can you consume Morpheus? The Morpheus Enterprise platform can be consumed as software only, which is on the left side of the screen here. You can also consume it with our hardware, or you can, you know, consume it in our private cloud enterprise through our GreenLake model. So however you'd like to consume it, we have a method for you to do so. So we don't require you to buy hardware to get the Morpheus Enterprise software. You can do that, or you can buy it standalone. And then the last thing I will touch on, because it's a big thing, is our licensing model. We take a very simple approach. We don't want to complicate or try to nickel and dime our customers. So we actually charge in the on-premises environment, it's licensed by sockets, physical sockets, not cores, and not VM density. And then in a hyperscaler, obviously we don't know what the underlying socket count would be for any particular environment. So we take an approach of one socket equates to 15 workloads. In say AWS, that would be like an EC2 instance. So again, very simple model, licensing, it's subscription based. So we want to make it very simple for you to be able to leverage what you're about to see in the demo. So I'm going to take a breath and see if there's any questions for me. And otherwise, I'm going to stop sharing. Any questions out there, John? I don't see any.
No, I don't see any.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I'm going to moderate the Q&A. So Tuan, I'm going to let you take over, and I will interrupt you if we do get any questions from the audience.
All right. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And everybody can hear me all right?
Yep, loud and clear. And I
Great.
see your screen.
Okay, perfect. So quickly, I'm going to touch on and show you guys in reality what Hank was talking about, how Morpheus, as a CMP, as the orchestrator for your automation, can help customers achieve some of those value points that Hank brought up in what use cases that Morpheus Enterprise best meets. But just a quick thing around the architecture of Morpheus Enterprise. Morpheus Enterprise is a self-hosted platform, meaning that it is not SaaS. So customers can install it inside of their private cloud or public cloud environment, either or, meaning that, and really all Morpheus needs is basically a Linux-based VM, so deployed on VMware, deployed on our HVM hypervisor, deployed on Nutanix, right? Whatever hypervisor that is, or deployed in AWS or Azure on an EC2 instance. We can deploy on as small as what we call an all-in-one architecture, meaning a single Linux-based VM. We support most of the Linux distributions out there, everything from Red Hat to Rocky to CentOS to Ubuntu. You name it, we're probably going to be able to install on it from that Linux perspective. And we can go all the way up to a HA or highly available architecture, right? So for the customers that need more redundancy, more availability within the platform, we can definitely meet those needs as well. But just to give you guys kind of some numbers, a all-in-one deployment architecture of Morpheus can manage around a few thousand clients, meaning endpoints or servers in a multi-cloud, hybrid cloud environment, right? So an all-in-one architecture is able to be robust enough to handle those types of environments. But if we need to scale out even larger, then obviously we have that HA architecture to meet those needs. Morpheus can also be installed in air-gapped or secured environments. It does not need internet access. Hence, that's one of the reasons why it is self-hosted, is to meet the needs of those customers that have those security or air-gapped requirements. All right, so from there, we're going to move forward into the demo. I'm going to walk through the demo in two personas. The first persona is the Morpheus administrator, the person that comes in, connects all the foundational pieces around the clouds, the different third-party systems that we natively integrate in with, right, to provide that self-service automation experience, orchestration experience for an end user of the Morpheus administrator. And that end user could be anybody from the likes of a developer to another admin to a support person to a project manager, whoever it is in the organization or externally, Morpheus can provide for. So the second persona I'll show you is somebody who's going to consume services or workloads through the platform, right, that the administrator has built for them. So at its core foundation, Morpheus Enterprise Platform is a cloud management platform that allows basically IT organizations to bring in disparate and heterogeneous backend environments to be able to then start as the building block for IT end users to start consuming, whether it's deploying VMs, deploying containers, deploying then up to even middleware or full stack applications, right? Morpheus Enterprise allows basically what I like to call 5 use cases, which is we're going to give cloud visibility. And when we say cloud, we don't just mean public cloud, right? Like AWS, Azure, or GCP, we're talking private clouds too. We're going to turn those hypervisor manager endpoints like your vCenter, your Nutanix environments, your HVM environments, if you're running HPE's hypervisor HVM, right, into a private cloud as well. So with that being said, right, we're going to give you the ability to see what's happening and what's going on into those backend environments. We're going to give some guidance to be able to help admins optimize those, so cloud visibility, cloud optimization. Then we're going to be at our sweet spot is then we're going to help basically automate the deployment of resources on top of those cloud environments. And resources tend to usually mean VM vending, right, in an automated fashion. I came from the customer side, so what usually took us weeks into deploying out for projects, systems, right, VMs in multiple locations across the globe or into different clouds, public clouds, could have gone through weeks. We now did it in basically minutes through Morpheus, right? Interconnecting, right, the different tools from IPAM to load balancers to ServiceNow to getting code from GitHub, running the right playbooks, right? All that was basically integrated into Morpheus. So I, as the administrator, could bring that all together. So that way a project team came in and said, I need X resources from this private cloud or this public cloud. They were able to deploy it in a secure, compliant, and operable way. So that way I gave them the ability to have velocity, right, and productivity, but I still put the governance wrappers and all the IT wrappers I needed around the services that they were consuming. So with that being said, let's hit on, it's taking a while. Let's go to clusters. Apologies, it's still spinning. So you can see up there. Give me 1 second. Let me hit into another environment, see what's going on. All right. Okay, so we're able to find a different environment that I can demo for you guys. And of course, obviously, live demos, right? Things that are supposed to work don't always work, but here we are. So what we'll do is we'll go to the clouds first inside of a cloud environment or inside of Morpheus. As you can see, right, we're able to add in all different types of clouds natively into Morpheus. So like we talked before, anything from AWS, Azure to GCP to all the various different hypervisor managers as well. So the ability to bring in your Nutanix, your OLVM, your OpenStack, your Morpheus private cloud, which is our HVM hypervisor, your VMware environments, right? Your Hyper-Vs. The ability to bring in all those disparate backend cloud technologies and bring them into one consolidated environment for us to then be able to say, when I click onto the cloud that I've integrated in, right, I'm able to get information such as what's the cost of that environment, what are the hosts, what are the VMs that we found, what are the networks. So all those IaaS components of a cloud, whether it's public or private, Morpheus is going to be able to show, right, directly within our platform across the board. So now, as an administrator, as somebody who wants to be able to understand what's happening in my data centers or in my public cloud environments, I don't have to log into 4 or 5 different tools. I have a consolidated way of coming in and understanding what's happening inside of my environment, whether that is, I just showed you AWS, whether we do AWS or whether we come in and we take a look at our QA environment here, which is our VMware, right? We're going to see the exact information being shown. We're going to see, the exact data, so we can do an apples to apples comparison. Of that, we are able to also come in and showcase basically and be able to also bring in Kubernetes clusters as well. So the way we're agnostic with our clouds, we're also agnostic with Kubernetes. So if your customers are running not just applications and servers, right, but they're also running containers in Kubernetes, we're going to be able to integrate those in and basically give, again, a unified portal for the ability to integrate in both clouds and also Kubernetes to allow to be able to say, I now want to give a select project or a certain customer, because we do have multi-tenancy built in as well, the ability to come in and then say they can go ahead and deploy in this cloud versus that cloud versus this Kubernetes environment versus that one. So the ability to control also who inside of the environment gets access to what resources, right, from that RBAC perspective, is also valuable in being able to now bring in and consolidate all of those different environments into one unified portal. From there, like I said, we're able to come in and make guidance or recommendations because we're talking to all those hypervisor managers and all those hyperscaler API endpoints. So we're going to be able to say, hey, you've got some things that might need to be shut down, resized. You've got orphan resources out there in some particular clouds that you maybe went in and you removed the EC2 instance, but you still left the volume, or we still got snapshots running out there. So our ability to do that also give customers the ability to take a look at their cloud costs, right? So we're not a FinOps tool from a perspective of a traditional FinOps, but we're going to be able to give you costing information broken down by clouds, by tags, by any of those constructs within inside Morpheus to basically give you the ability to see what's happening from a cost utilization standpoint from that. The ability to also come in and set in integrations and policies based on some of those capabilities. So the ability to come in here and say, I want to go ahead and now, before I let my end users start bringing in or deploying workloads, I want them to be able to only use this many resources, cap them at how many VMs they can deploy, put shutdown policies, put around in utilization policies to now be more proactive. Because Morpheus, for the first two use cases, showed me my clouds, give me visibility into my clouds, made recommendations to help me optimize the clouds, but that was more reactive. So from a proactive standpoint, Morpheus can now start putting in those operational guardrails so that IT organizations can feel better and safer around the fact that, hey, I'm going to give an end user the ability to self-service and consume, right, these environments that I manage every day, but they're not going to do it in such a way that it becomes the Wild Wild West, right? Like Hank just can't go out and deploy 200 VMs and either consume all the resources inside of these data centers that I give him access to, or basically jack up my cloud, my public cloud cost because he's deployed all these types of VMs. I can put those policies in place to kind of be more proactive and say, Hank can only do XYZ, he can only consume XYZ. If he does deploy something, they have to run at these hours or they're going to auto delete themselves. So for, say, labs or development teams, right, they go and they deploy systems, but they never clean them up. Morpheus will actually create a policy to clean them up, to say after 30 days, you probably aren't developing anymore, so we're going to clean up the systems, right, that you're developing on. So the ability to do that across the board. So all the clouds that you bring in, I can either scope these policies globally so everybody gets them, or by a group, or by an end user, right, or even by a role. From that perspective, I can then come in and then I can add in my integrations. So the ability to come in and add in my Ansible, add in my Git repositories, be able to come in and connect to my ServiceNow environment, right, for my ITSM, and then pull all that into an automation platform that allows me to then add in all these different disparate, right, automation code that I might have, right, whether it's Ansible playbooks, PowerShell, Shell, JavaScript, Python, it doesn't matter. If the end customer has standardized on a particular coding end or scripting backend, or they haven't, we're going to be able to use that. So we're not going to force the customer to say, you have to put all your code in, say, YAML or Python, right? because then that adoption of the platform takes too long. We're going to say whatever you already have built today, we're going to let you reuse it, right? And we're going to help you use it. And we're going to help you accelerate it by the fact that we're being agnostic. So as one of the themes you're seeing across the board here is that agnostic theme. We don't want to vendor lock in the customer from any perspective of whether they choose what backend infrastructure they want to build their clouds on or deploy systems on, and also any of the automation tools that they want to use or languages they want to use, right? The ability to say, whatever you have, bring it in, we'll integrate it. We're going to allow you then to use it out of the box from that perspective. And then we're going to take it and we're going to help you orchestrate it. So the ability to then come in and basically give you the ability to add in a workflow management orchestration that says, hey, I can break now, add in any of my tasks into any of these automation these lifecycle management phases. So I can say, put this task that was written in Ansible in my before provisions phase, but then during my scale down or my turn off machine phase, I can add in different tasks that was written in a different language. We'll orchestrate all that. So now, therefore, you don't need an admin to then come in and run this script and run that script or partially run it, right? The system can run it at any phase of that life cycle of that system that's being deployed through Morpheus. So therefore, you have the system doing it 100% of the time and not relying on a human. So you can see how organizations can get more efficient and effective with also the manpower that they're using, because now we're using automation and orchestration to not just help drive the velocity and productivity of the end user, but also of the IT team as well. Okay, so from that perspective, ultimately what we allow to do is we're going to allow the customer to then, or the administrator to build out catalog items. These catalog items are customizable. Nothing comes out of the box. It's all up to the customer to then come in and say, I need to build XYZ catalogs or services right through Morpheus that either different teams, whether they're IT teams, IT adjacent teams, non-IT teams can come in and consume, whether it's, hey, I want to deploy a simple Docker blueprint that deploys a container that looks like this versus something where I can come in and I can deploy an AWS Apache in a particular cloud with a particular plan with a particular security group, and here's the price, and I just hit order now, right? From that perspective, I can come in and I can show, and apologies if you see some of the words that don't match. We're actually doing a language translation in this environment in Vietnamese. So we actually do produce this or able to let multinational customers actually be able to administrate their environments. But this is basically how the customers can come in and consume, but also then not just consume, but then also manage their systems from a day two perspective. So it doesn't matter if these systems are running in VMware, it doesn't matter if they're running in Amazon, right? The experience also for the admin or the end user is, I deployed my systems, now I need to manage it from a day two perspective, right? I can come in and I can do such things as, do such things as reconfigure, right? Reconfigure. I can do such things as backup. I can open the console. I can see the history. I can see the audit. So, and all of this is controllable. So based on the job and function of the end user, right? I can say, I want to give them access to only deploy these things through the catalog, or I can say, this is an admin. They get access to build out the clouds and bring in the integrations where a developer can only come in and consume and deploy things. And everything you see me do through the UI, I can do through the API as well. So this is an API endpoint that I can call to get information about my system, whether I'm a developer and I want to do everything through code, or I want to push it and have a third-party system integrate in with Morpheus to pull the data from Morpheus, or to have Morpheus do something like deploy a system, manage a system. I can do that programmatically, or I can do that through the UI. So the ability for me to come in, see all this information about my system, right? Do day two activities such as reconfigure, run additional automation and orchestration through my system really allows me the power to, like I said, be able to have my end users be productive, right? Through velocity, through the access of basically self-service, right? From a day zero, day one, day two perspective. But I, as the admin, control all the capabilities that they get to have. So if I didn't want to have them be able to reconfigure, I can turn that option off through RBAC, through security, and I can choose what they have access to. So from that perspective, Morpheus at a high level solves those use cases around cloud visibility, cloud optimization, right? Infrastructure deployments such as containers and VMs. We can even also deploy applications, right? So full tier applications through blueprints. So not just going at the infrastructure level of just deploying VMs, but then deploying full tier applications, multi-tier applications, deploy a whole application with the database, a front end and a back end, right? That customers can then, IT customers can then come in and consume. And we can do it through infrastructure as code as well, because I can come in and deploy my Terraform, I can deploy my CloudFormation or my ARM or my Helm charts directly through Morpheus, right? I just need to be able to go ahead and supply that inside of the platform, and my end users will consume it without having needed to be experts in those technologies. So we go back here, let's see if this is available so I can kind of showcase that to you guys. This one is still running, connectivity is still running a little slow. But from that perspective, I'm going to take a quick breath, see if there are any questions we have out there on anything that I've just shown and what Morpheus is meant to do and what problems, business problems it helps solve for ITs and different organizations.
So Tuan, there's one question around what insights and benefits does Morpheus provide when integrating with InfoBlocks?
So for InfoBlocks, what we do is we're consumptive. So most of the integrations that we consume means that we're going to talk to that third-party system via API and then pull data back to represent it inside of Morpheus. So what we can do with InfoBlocks is that we're going to pull in all the IP pools, right? Then you're going to attach them in Morpheus. So that way, when end user and admin deploys a system in Morpheus, Morpheus will talk to InfoBlocks or any other IPAM, say what are the available IP addresses from the IP pool that you've given me to use. I'll take that available one, and then I'll give you back the information to say, I've taken this available IP address from that pool to update you. So that way an administrator or a network person or anybody within the IT team doesn't have to go back and forth between the two products. Morpheus is making that call and doing that communication to InfoBlocks or the IPAM to get the available IPs and then to update the IPAM of what's being used at time of deployment. Hopefully that answers the question. Perfect. Okay, anything else?
No other questions in the chat right now?
Okay, so with that being said, the other thing I wanted to showcase was the ability for us to take a look at our multi-tenancy, but I'm going to talk through that a little bit right now. Let me actually bring up a different environment so that way you guys can see that a little bit better. Apologies, give me 1 second. Here we go. Morpheus also has built-in multi-tenancy. So what that means is out of the box, right, we're able to service any type of MSP or CSPs. Actually, 35 to 40% of our customer base are MSPs, meaning that customers who have a private cloud that they want to be able to then have their customers leverage and use, out of the box, Morpheus can create the ability to come in and go in the tenant and basically share down or create the tenant, so that way we can give permissions to the tenant from this perspective. So we come in here, we'll see, let me see a role there. Oh, there it was, just took a little bit of time. But we can come in and we can impersonate a tenant, and we can see that we can give the tenant the ability to access any of the clouds or give the tenant the ability to bring in the clouds. So even though at the master tenant level or the root tenant level, I have 40 something clouds, I only shared down to this tenant the ability to bring in 2 clouds from that perspective. The tenant can then also add in any plans and policies and integrations that they want. And what happens is that logically it is separated. So therefore, anything I do in this tenant here does not affect any other tenant. And I cannot share out anything to any other tenant inside of the environment. So it's basically a fault domain that's really locked down. So anything that happens inside that tenant remains in that tenant. Therefore, it doesn't impact any other construct inside of Morpheus. But yet, instead of needing to deploy 10 or 20 or 15 different Morpheus environments in order to support multiple customers, you do it from one Morpheus installation, but you have the ability to then service, right, multiple customers in that multi-tenant environment as well from that perspective. And the ability for me as the administrator in the root tenant gives me the ability to go in and administrate those different tenants from that perspective and set their policies, set what catalogs they can access, set my permissions down, and really control the RBAC as well. Okay, with that being said, everybody now has gotten a high-level overview and understanding of the use cases of Morpheus, the value that we're able to bring by bringing in together, right, disparate and heterogeneous technologies into one unified portal, allowing teams to then engineer and platform engineer inside our platform to bring in together tools such as, from different spaces such as, your IPAM tools, your ServiceNow tools, your Ansible code, and really be able to then consolidate and remove the barriers of consumption of IT services, right, through automation, through orchestration in a self-service manner. So with that being said, Hank, I'll hand it back to you and see if we have any other questions.
Nope, I don't see any additional questions. Anybody have any last moment questions for us? All right, I'm going to pass it back over, John, to you.
I just want to say thank our HPE partners for presenting today. I think you guys did a great job. Give you a round of applause. Those that attended, I'll let you know that we will have this posted on our website for replay. So if you'd like to share this with others within your team, and we'll probably do a push campaign so people will have access to this. But I just want to thank you for your time and joining us today. And I hope you have a great afternoon.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Have a good one.